sustainable manufacturing in the continent and having competitive trade. The webinar also looks at the current prospects, where we are, and the progress that we are making or we have made. We are happy to welcome you, taking this opportunity to welcome you on behalf of the Secretary General, Dr. Hemojin Sengimana. He's not in the office at the moment. He's out on other duties, but he passes his greetings to you. We are hosting this also in conjunction with the Zambia Bureau of Standards, and so we have the co-host, Nathan Singambwe, who is present with us, and we shall be having him to give us his opening remarks. We have our moderator, Mr. Lupia Masunda from Zambia, who will be steering the webinar as we move forward. And we are happy to present to you our panelists. We have Dan Kithome from ARSO, who will be the first panelists to set the scene and highlight the progress, the theme that we are taking. We also have Rose Kalumba, who is a coordinator of Proudly Zambian campaign, which ties in very well with Made in Africa. As we always mention that Made in Africa will actually be based on the Made in Zambia, the Made in Uganda, the Made in Kenya campaigns, so that we are able to promote the Made in Africa goods, trade, and services. We also have from Tralac, Abre Duplessis. Tralac, actually, I don't know how to say that it tracks the integration agenda in the continent, and they will be giving us their presentation through Duplessis. Then we have Ryunja Kakunga, former MD or CEO of Namibia Standards Institute, and a consultant with PTB, but also someone who is very well versed with the regulatory and standardization issues in the continent and how they impact trade. Finally, we will be having Komi from UNDP, who is a regional advisor on the FCFTA. And these are the panelists that we shall be having with a lot of insights into the workings of the trade issues in the continent. Next. Next. So the key issue is that we are looking at trade in the continent, the intra-African trade. Because one of the things that you will notice is that we have a very low level of trade within Africa itself. And part of the reasons, of course, is that we have various or divergent standards and technical regulations, as well as conformity assessment. So this is one of the concerns that we are going to be addressing today, and to look at what can we do to ensure that we can actually increase trade. You can look at the other continents, like Europe, when they talk of trade, which is around 68.1%. You look at the ASEAN countries, 59.4%. Then you look at the intra-American trade, they are at 55%. Of course, Oceania is a different case altogether because they are also in a kind of different environment. Our trade actually peaked at around from 2015 to 2016 at 21%. We don't know what happened. Maybe that's something that also can be again said. As we are moving towards deeper continental integration, we expect that this should actually increase. So we explore, and we do think that there are lots of factors that we need to take into account and to ensure that we improve our trade. we look at also the international community when you look at some of the issues that have been adopted. The third industrial development ticket for Africa is ongoing. But as we look at this, we also look at the initiatives that the continent has. There are quite a number of initiatives, such as the African Commodity Strategy that has been identified as one that we can use to increase trade in the continent. We have the African Mining Vision, also looking at how we can not just mine, but also add value. We have GADEP, which tries to look at the productivity in agriculture and food trade, and they are set goals. You realize that we have targets to increase trade in agriculture and food products in the Malabo Declaration, which try to see how can we make it triple and increase much further. Because that is an area that we know in the agriculture and food products, there is a bigger share of trade, but it needs to increase. So a lot of issues need to be addressed in this direction. Next. And so part of the aspects we know, it is also that the African Continental Free Trade Area tries to sort out the multiple memberships that we have at the intra-rec regions. And this is what some of the times is claimed that it hinders trade in Africa because countries have divided loyalties to their recs. And in those recs, you find that there are issues of rules of origin, there are issues of standards, there are issues of technical regulations, and such other commitments which are not in line with what the continent aspires to have as a one kind of regime of trade. And so how do we sort out these aspects so that we can trade more among ourselves? So let's move. So we look at the various value chains, and in the current ASO General Assembly, we were looking at which country can be a champion in terms of value chains that are of significant prospects for growth in the continent. And therefore, we are looking at the key value chains which have been identified as the continental priority. But then again, we look at what could be the issues that we need to address, that then it can unleash or can unlock the trade that we are experiencing, the low intra-African trade that we are experiencing. Without taking a lot of the time, I wish to let's go to the objectives, please. I wish to just welcome all the panelists and the participants who are with us for today, so that we can learn more and contribute. Feel free to send your questions through the chat boxes. The chat box so that our panelists can answer. Ourselves, we can collect the questions and perhaps respond in time, in a timely manner. We compile the questions and then we give the responses. At this juncture, I would like to welcome our co-host, Nathan, CEO of Zambia Bureau of Standards, to give us his opening remarks. And then we move to giving the moderator the time to steer the webinar. Welcome, Nathan, for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Ruben. I want to recognize the presence of the ASO Council members here present who have joined our webinar this afternoon. And also, I want to recognize the presence of the Dr. Hemogen Sengimana, Secretary General of ASO, ably represented by Director Ruben Gisore, also the Chief Executive Officers and Director Generals of National Standards Bodies, and also members of ASO. You are welcome as well. I want also to recognize the presence of the Chief Executive Officer of the Zambia Association of Manufacturers, represented by Ms. Rose Kalumbu Chikotola Sichizia, who is also a coordinator of the Proud Zambian campaign. I also want to recognize the distinguished panelists who are here present this afternoon, and also representatives of the ASWA members, colleagues from the standardization community. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. It is always both an honor and a privilege to once again host this important session of the ASWA monthly webinar series. On behalf of Zambia Bureau of Standards and the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, I extend our warmest welcome to all of you joining us today in the 57th session of the webinar series under the theme, Promoting the African Sustainable Manufacturing and Trade Through Competitive Made in Africa Products and the Role of Standardization. This indeed marks Zambia's second consecutive co-hosting of the ASWA webinar series, a clear demonstration of our unwavering commitment to fostering meaningful dialogue and driving impactful action in support of Africa's industrialization and trade integration agenda. At Zambia Bureau of Standards, we believe that standardization is not merely a technical exercise, but it is a strategic enabler of economic transformation. Through our work in developing national standards, promoting conformity assessment, and supporting SMEs, we aim to remove technical barriers to trade, enhance product quality, and boost the competitiveness of the Zambian and African enterprises. The theme of today's webinar resonates well deeply with our national aspirations. The Made in Africa initiative is more than a slogan. It is a call to action, a call to build consumer confidence, to champion quality, and to celebrate African ingenuity. We recognize the challenges, particularly the negative perception that still surround the locally made products, but we also see the opportunities at the same time. Through initiatives like the Made in Africa qualification criteria, we are working to ensure that African products meet the Africa harmonized standards of quality, safety, and origin. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, presents a historic opportunity to reshape our economies, unlock regional value chains, and also drive inclusive industrialization. Zambia, as the case of a number of ASWA members, is actively participating in the harmonization as well as adoption of African standards in support of the AFCFTA implementation, which is aimed at building a single integrated African market. So we in Zambia, as is the case for other ASWA members, we don't just participate in harmonizing standards. And also we don't just end at adopting these standards, but we need to ensure that these standards are implemented. They are implemented by industry and by other users. We look forward to sharing more information and experience on this through the presentation from various panelists, from our private sector representative, from the Zambia Association of Manufacturers as well. As we engage in today's discussion through presentation by our distinguished panelists and the plenary engagements, we are all urged. Remember that standardization is a shared responsibility. Governments, private sector actors, regional bodies, and development partners must work together to support competitive made in Africa products through standardization. As I conclude, I wish to reaffirm Zambia's readiness to continue leading by example and also to work hand in hand with ASWA and all stakeholders to realize the vision of a prosperous, industrialized, and self-reliant Africa. Let us seize this moment to inspire action, forge partnership, and build a future where made in Africa is synonymous with excellence. I thank you all. I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nathan. As you may recall, currently we're actually promoting the Made in Africa through certification of SMEs, and we are happy that quite a number of countries, including Zambia, are participating in this exercise. This is the way to show that the standards are not just nice text storybooks that we harmonize and keep, but also we use them for purposes of ensuring that our SMEs can participate in continental as well as global trade. I take this opportunity to welcome our moderator, Lupia Mazunda, a Senior Communications Officer in the Zambia Bureau of Standards. He currently serves as the Senior Communications Officer. As indicated, in his capacity, he leads the statutory body's communication efforts, ensuring the visibility and credibility of national standardization activities, both locally and internationally. Having worked across diverse sectors, Lupia Mazunda plays a pivotal role in raising public awareness on standards, quality assurance, and safety. He is instrumental in enhancing the visibility of the Bureau's services and strengthening communication support for national regulatory initiatives. Driven by a passion of impactful messaging and the power of storytelling, he continues to positively shape the public narrative around national and regional development, compliance, and quality assurance. Lupia, we welcome you. Today you are going to be our driver in the webinar, and we will be with you throughout so that we can do this successfully. Thank you very much. Welcome to take over.
Thank you very much, Director Ruben, for that lovely introduction to our all-important webinar today. We'd also like to thank you, Mr. Nathan Singamba, for those beautiful opening remarks that suit and fit with today's all-important topic around promoting the African sustainable manufacturing and trade through competitive made in Africa products and the role of standardization. So to take it through, so I'll go straight to introduce our first speaker, who is Mr. Dan Kitome. So Mr. Dan Kitome is the ICT officer at ASO, and Mr. Dan Kitome is a highly experienced ICT professional with over 13 years of dedicated service at the African Organization for Standardization Central Secretariat. Throughout his tenure, he has been instrumental in shaping ASO's digital landscape and coordinating key activities, serving primarily as an ICT officer and concurrently as the ASA competition and DISNET coordinator. His multifaceted role underscores his versatility and commitment to ASO's mission of promoting standardization across Africa. He is a multi-skilled information communication technology officer with good all-round supervisory and technical expertise, very capable with a proven ability to ensure the smooth running of ICT systems and to provide IT services that will improve the efficiency and performance of organizations. So he has extensive knowledge of complex systems, builds, hardware and software testing, network support, technical support, and computer maintenance. And he also holds a bachelor's degree in business information technology and certifications in Microsoft Certified Server Expert MCSE, Prince 2 project management, and is a certified information systems auditor, CISA. Mr. Dan Kitome would like to welcome you to this all-important webinar, and thank you very much for according us your time with regards to this discussion. So Mr. Kitome will take us through the theme, empowering African businesses and trade competitiveness with particular attention to MSMEs and made in Africa as engines for Africa's sustainable manufacturing and trade, the role of standardization in eliminating trade barriers and ASO initiatives to promote intra-African trade. So, Mr. Kitome, thank you very much, and over to you with regards to your topic of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moderator Lupia. My name is Dan Kithome. As earlier indicated, my presentation will be purely to just bring you to speed with regards to the role of standardization in eliminating trade barriers, also initiatives to promote inter-African trade. Allow me to just go through our organization, ARSO. This body was founded in 1977 by the African Union and UNECA, and our basic role was to promote standardization across Africa. Currently, we have 43 member states and one observer member. You can see on the left of your screen where we have the African map. We hope that by the end of this year or next year, it will be fully green, and we have all the countries joining under the ACFTA as ARSO members. Our main mandate is to harmonize standards, conformity assessment, and procedures, and to reduce technical barriers to trade. And when you saw the topic that I'm presenting on, is purely to just help SMEs or MSMEs reduce technical barriers to trade. We also look forward to Made in Africa, and in this case, when we're talking about promoting inter-African trade and international trade, we also look forward to industrialization of Africa, which is also one of our main goals. Why do we talk about Made in Africa? ARSO is very crucial in creating a single and integrated African market by ensuring one, product quality, two, product safety, and compatibility. And this is where we talk about regional value chains. This has also been mentioned by our co-host, where we really need to ensure our products have quality, ensure that it has safety, and in cases where interoperability, it has what we call compatibility. And this is key in supporting what we call Made in Africa under the FCFTA agreement, under TBT Annex 6 and SPS Annex 7. We also look forward to our key principle of 111, where we talk about one standard for the African region, one test for the African region or for one product, one certificate issued, and this certificate should be accepted everywhere. And in some of these cases, on the bottom of my screen, we have the ARSO marks indicated. And this, for example, will be able to help us implement the 111, where we talk about the one standard, one test, one certificate. In my presentation, you'll be able to understand why I'm talking about the 111, and I'll slowly touch on it. What are our initiatives that we are currently working on? ARSO harmonizes standards as our key mandate. And currently we have 2,440 African standard harmonized. But that's not where we stop. Technical committees are still discussing and harmonizing more standards, with 99 technical committees currently active and inaugurated. And this is to just directly reduce what we call technical barriers to trade, which have often caused by one, national or regional standards differing with each other. And therefore, if you harmonize, we'll be able to reduce the TBT that is usually affecting us. When we go to what we call our programs that feed into Made in Africa and into harmonizing of standards, we have cases of the Conformity Assessment Committee, which we call the ARSO-CACO. Under the ARSO-CACO, this is what we are currently doing. We are currently pushing for self-declaration of conformity by MSMEs. In cases where they will check on the standard, they will ensure that they conform, and they will sign a declaration form of conformity. We will also pushing for dual marking of products with product certification on African standards. And this is during awareness creation sessions. We are always meeting with SMEs, engaging with them to push for their certification. We are training trainers on the African Conformity Assessment Program so that they can be able to disseminate this information and train other people as auditors, as users of the African Conformity Assessment Program in the African level. We've been able to do this 3 months ago, and we've certified several trainers, almost 100 within the African continent. When we talk about accreditation of CBs on EcoMark certification or ARSO-Mark certification, this has been done. And I think Zambia is one of the beneficiaries of the EcoMark certification, plus other African countries where we have Egypt, we have Kenya, and others, which I will not want to mention right now because of time, certification of SMEs and MSMEs. And this is key to Made in Africa and also to African integration and implementation of what we call harmonized African standards. When we talk about certification of SMEs, MSMEs, we are not certifying the company, we are certifying the product. And currently ARSO is planning to certify more than 100 MSMEs who have already applied to be certified. They've gone through a checklist to plan for certification and audit. And this will be supported purely by ARSO in the first phase to ensure we have products certified with the ARSO mark and complying to African standards. We are also going further under the conformity assessment to enhance testing and inspection across the continent through equipping labs and testing facilities. ARSO has had the benefit of getting sponsorship to be able to support some of the SMEs, NSBs, which qualify to be equipped with some of these crucial lab and testing facilities. This is something you'll definitely see in our social media as we move forward. Maybe by end of September, these things should have been delivered to the countries. We also have what we call the Consumer Committee as one of the programs. And in this case, we've been able to have capacity building of consumers on sensitive topics. Key topics in some webinars that we've already had is issues of cosmetics, which purely affects a lot of African stakeholders, tourism, services, and artificial intelligence, which is now trending and is in use. And it's important for us to be able to make sure that we comply and live in the trends. As we move forward, all these activities being done without the Documentation Information System Network, which is called the ARSO DISNet, we will not be able to disseminate this information or have some activities moving on. And therefore, we have what we call the African Trade Portal, where you will find countries indicating which standards have been adopted, which standard is required, for example, to move a product from country A to country B within the continent. And therefore, we're just pushing them under the DISNet committee to continue feeding data into that platform to enable trade. We also have what we call the Standards Harmonization Digital Platform, currently SharePoint, but we are currently digitalizing this platform to ensure more transparency and ease of use. And these are things happening under the Documentation Information System Network. We have our websites where we post a lot of information. We have our social media where we will also post all these activities that we do at ARSO. And therefore, we ask all stakeholders to make sure they look at our social media pages, either for consultancies, to gain information or to learn from us, or we can learn from them. We also have the ARSO library, which is a store for standards and all publications we have at ARSO. We always move forward to educate people who are working, for example, in the NSBs to implement standards. But we have the youth. And so at ARSO, we have what we call the Continental Essay Competition. This will be the 13th in 2025-2026, the 13th competition, where we want the youth who are the new, who will be the owners of SMEs or MSMEs or the implementers of standards to understand standardization before they start implementing it at the tertiary level. And therefore, we have this standards education program also under the DISNet. And then we also have what you call publications being done at the ARSO Central Secretariat. And this is to just inform stakeholders under the standardization field of what is happening at Africa, what is being done, and what can change, what can be improved in each and every single segment. And you can see on our left, we have one of the publications on benefits of implementing harmonized standards, which were launched during our 31st ARSO General Assembly. On these initiatives that we have, why are we doing all these things? We want a robust quality infrastructure across the continent. If we enable, for example, the NSPs, they'll be able to ensure that African products meet recognized standards if they have testing labs that are well equipped. If you have information from the consumers, they'll be able to push for harmonization of these standards. And therefore, we are disseminating these trade barriers and fostering a conducive environment for the growth of what we are looking for is made in African goods. On my next slide, I would just like to delve into two elements, ARSO and Made in Africa. We've talked about Made in Africa. The co-host also talked about Made in Africa. But what is it? It's a program. And who is running the Made in Africa program? It's the AUC Secretariat, the African Union Commission, with leverage from the QI, Quality Infrastructure Partners in Africa, ARSO being one of them. And we have 3 more under the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure. It's a voluntary scheme where you can participate in. A key in point, and you can see in red, rules of origin, it's very important. Why it's important for you to say, for example, a good is wholly made in Africa and therefore can be called made in Africa, or it has been substantially transformed within the continent and therefore it can be conferred as a made in Africa. As you can see on the left, we have, for example, where in Africa we proudly develop what we call sandals that are considered African. We see African clothing. We have several things made within the continent, and therefore we need to be proud of what we do and establish the Made in Africa. So what constitutes the implementation of Made in Africa? We have 3 primary elements and conditions under which the Made in Africa certification can be granted to applicants that qualify. This will also be presented by one of panelists in this, and that's why I didn't delve in deeply, but to touch on it, we have what we call standards and technical regulations, and this is where ARSO plays key in harmonizing the standards so that you can be able to allow for cross-border trade. We have conformity assessment when we talk about accreditation issues. We have issues of rules of origin, and you've seen I've mentioned it in red, establishing the origin of products, ensuring that they're fully produced within the African continent and not just a rebranding. Intellectual property rights, tenets apply, and therefore this is not a very crucial one, but in some cases you have to make sure you do not infringe in some intellectual property rights. In my final slide, I would just like to touch on why harmonized standards offer immense benefits to what we call made in Africa products, inter-African trade. And you've seen I've not boldened global trade because harmonized standards initially would like to improve our trade to more than 16%, as initially stated by our technical director in his presentation, to at least 50%. And this will foster innovation. It will also foster job creation for our African youth and also create businesses and economic empowerment of African states. So one, we'll ensure products meet consistent quality and safety benchmarks within the continent. Also building consumer confidence in one African products, and also finally building brand reputation continental-wide and globally. Ensure manufacturers, one, achieve economies of scale. If you have markets where you're selling 1,000 goods and now you've expanded your markets, you're now selling 1,000,000 goods, you have economies of scale being met, and you can be able to trade better, and products will reduce their costs and will be able to at least employ more people and expand. Also provide a clear framework for product development, foster innovation. Standardization usually fosters innovation and streamlining the production process. On your left, you can see some of the indigenous African products that we usually do. And you can actually tell that it's purely African by just seeing it. And then if we talk about if it's in action under the FCFTA, what are we trying to do? We are trying to say that if you have a conflicting standard, it's supposed to be withdrawn in the country if you have a harmonized African standard. And therefore, if we do that, products complying with harmonized standards will either gain easier entry into multiple African markets. We will have reduced delays due to compliance. We will reduce administrative burdens at borders. This will facilitate faster trade flows within countries. And finally, if we talk about issues under the FCFTA, we also look at the WTO agreement, and we want to ensure greater transparency for traders. And this will be easier if we implement these harmonized standards and technical regulation, and also making sure that these businesses, MSMEs, have information so that they can comply in advance and understand where they need to comply so that they can prepare earlier before they start trading the product or moving the product across borders. I thank you very much. And just touching the last, we harmonize standards enhance quality and trust as a basis, reduce production costs, and finally enhances and ensures that we have innovation and efficiency in production processes. Thank you very much. That is my
Thank you very much, Mr. Dan Kitome, for that very insightful presentation on how we can go on empowering African businesses. I think a key takeaway from there was the aspect of the one standard, one test, and one certificate. I think that is something that will be beneficial to us as Africans. So, Mr. Kitome, I would like to quickly touch base based on your presentation. How do you interlink the variant national and regional standards and conformity assessment regimes to the low levels of intra-African trade, and with what effects to the SMEs trading capacities? We had seen in your discussion there, you had showed us goods and services that are produced locally. So how do some of these interventions touch to the SMEs at the lower level of trade in Africa? In under a minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just like to answer it briefly. When we talk about issues of when you talk about implementing standards for the utilization by SMEs, we talk about product consistency, quality, safety benchmarks. If you look at and consumer confidence, MSMEs produce products not for a big audience. It's usually because of their capacity, they can only, for example, produce 1,000 elements, which will not commercially be viable to, for example, help them pay for conformity. And in some cases where ARSO has been able to sponsor MSMEs, you'll go back to them and they will have a challenge in paying for the certification because of the capacity that they are doing. So when we talk about issues of Made in Africa and conformity assessment and standardization, when we push it to the SMEs, we encourage them that they can do what we call self-declaration and sign off from a quality manager that they have, that they've been able to qualify, or they are meeting this specific standard. And at that level, the NSB can support NSBs by reviewing and checking if their process fully comply to the standardization practices, and they can be able to easily trade and access markets. That is, I think, my first answer. Just to note, for Made in Africa, the enablers are one, key quality infrastructure institutions, and one is standardization. You have the technical regulations and you have the standards. And just a parting shot on this specific activity, we have the president of FDB, Adesina, stating that initially we used to say charity begins at home, but trade is what begins at home because it is part of charity. Before you can donate, you need to make the money so that you can be able to trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kitome, for that insightful discussion around how we can go on empowering African SMEs. We'd also like to emphasize that he touched on how do harmonized standards benefit the African continent in terms of enhancing our trade and also breaking barriers to trade. So thank you very much, Mr. Kitome, and we'll be getting back to you as we move along with our webinar. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us for this insightful webinar, whose theme is Intra-African Trade and the Made in Africa. So I can see we've got participants from around Africa. Thank you very much for joining us. Moving on to our next speaker, we have Miss Rose Kalumbu Chikotola Schizia from Zambia. So Rose is the coordinator of the Proudly Zambian campaign, Zambia's leading initiative promoting the production, visibility, and consumption of locally manufactured goods. So Rose Kalumbu is the coordinator of the Proudly Zambian campaign, and she serves as the coordinator of the Proudly Zambian campaign, leading Zambia's initiative and promoting the production, visibility, and consumption of locally manufactured goods. Backed by an MBA and extensive experience in project management, and stakeholder engagement, ROSE plays a central role in advancing the campaign's mission to strengthen local industry, support SMEs, and build national pride in Zambian products. Implemented by the Zambia Association of Manufacturers, of which the institution that ROSE is representing today, in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, the Proudly Zambian campaign provides product, certification, branding support, and market access opportunities for local producers. It champions value addition, quality assurance, and consumer trust in Zambian-made products. So under ROSE's coordination, the campaign has expanded its membership and sector reach, positioning itself as a key driver of Zambia's industrial growth and economic resilience. The campaign to inspire both businesses and consumers to support local, create jobs, and contribute to sustainable national development through the simple but powerful message, think local first. Rose, you are welcome, and thank you very much for according us your time to come and discuss this all-important discussion. So Rose will be taking us through a discussion focused on improving the trade competitiveness of African SMEs and entrepreneurs and their market access and participation in the intra-African trade under the AFCTA through implementation of harmonized standards and certification benefits and challenges. Rose, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you everybody for participating in this informative webinar. I will head straight into my presentation. I would like a confirmation of whether my screen is being shared.
Yes.
Yes, Rose, it is. Thank you.
And it's clear, okay. Like it has been alluded, my name is Rose Chikotola Sichizia, and I am the coordinator for the Proudly Zambian campaign, which is being implemented by Zambia Association of Manufacturers. Just a brief background of what the association is. We are basically an apex body for manufacturers in Zambia, and we represent over 18 manufacturing subsectors. And we also look for companies that offer a service to the manufacturing industry. And then aside from that, I do work under the Proudly Zambian campaign, which is a national buy local campaign initiated by Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry in partnership with ZAM. I think I'll give more details as I continue with my presentation. So I can start. So an introduction, a brief introduction. CFTA launched in 2021, aimed at boosting intra-African trade by 50%, and this is by 2035. So it covers about 54 countries and 1.3 billion people, with a market of 3.4 million US dollars. So this represents or presents transformative opportunities, but technical trade barriers persist. And harmonized standards and certifications are critical in enhancing SME competitiveness and intra-African market participation. As to delve in, the AFCFTA is a flagship initiative of the African Union to create the world's largest free trade area. And some of the trade barriers still exist, and I'll just list a few. That is the non-tariff barriers, like inconsistent product standards, duplicate certification, and regulatory delays. So it's essential for building product credibility, consumer trust, and seamless cross-border trade through harmonized standards and certification. So if we go into the relevant AFCFTA protocols and frameworks that Zambia trades on, the first one would be the Protocol on Trade in Goods. And this provides a legal foundation of harmonizing technical regulations, standards, and conformity assessment procedures across all member states. And it also tries to encourage alignment with international best practices and the adoption of national standards. We also have the Protocol on Trade in Services, which aims to liberalize services such as certification, inspection, metrology, and logistics. And it also tries to reduce behind the border restrictions that limit access to reliable testing and certification services for SMEs. And this protocol also encourages regulatory cooperation and transparency, as well as capacity building in service delivery, which then enables Zambian SMEs to operate regionally. There's also the tariff barriers, that's reporting, monitoring, and elimination mechanism. So that's a web-based and mobile platform for real-time reporting and resolution of trade obstacles, including those related to standards and yeah. Then the final one is guided trade initiative. And this is a flagship or pilot program that was launched in 2022 to demonstrate early implementation of protocols and accurate trading under the AFCFTA rules. And Zambia is amongst the first participating countries and exporting certified goods such as sugar, maize meal, and ceramics. And this is under the harmonized customs and standards procedures. Then one would ask, what are some of the benefits? So some of the benefits for SMEs and entrepreneurs would be the enhanced product quality and brand trust. So certifications signals credibility, safety, and consistency, which then builds customer or consumer confidence both locally and across Africa. Then certified SMEs would then now enjoy a stronger brand reputation and customer loyalty, especially in competitive sectors such as agro-processing and cosmetics. Then another benefit is the access to larger regional markets via mutual recognition agreements. So harmonized standards allow Zambian certified products to enter either SADC or COMESA markets without repeating or repeated testing. And this unlocks access to a market of over 1.3 billion people. Then that then now drives business expansion. The last benefit would be the costs duplicate certification and testing I had alluded to. I think it also reduces operational inefficiencies and export costs by eliminating the need of recertification in multiple countries. And on average, I think it would give SMEs a savings of about 10 to 15% in testing and logistics. I would also like to highlight that the other benefit would be that it enables participation in the regional value chains and public procurement. So certified SMEs are more likely to secure regional contracts. And then they would also have trade fair slots and supply chain partnerships, which would then now enhance their inclusion in the public procurement schemes that require compliance with recognized standards. Some of the challenges being faced in Zambia is capacity gaps. And we've noted that many SMEs are unaware of the benefits and standards or even how to comply. And there's also a lack of trained personnel in quality management and certification processes. And a solution to that would be the national training and mentorship programs that have been led by ZABS and some by ZAM through the Proudly Zambian campaign, which then build awareness and technical know-how. Then there's also what we call infrastructure deficits, limited testing and metrology infrastructure. So currently Zambia only has a few ISO accredited laboratories, mostly concentrated in Lusaka. So that now makes delays and extra costs arising when SMEs have to send their products abroad for testing. Again, a solution to this would be to invest in regional laboratories and mobile testing units. I think it was alluded in the previous presentation. Then cost barriers. Certification is expensive to SMEs. We can't run away from that. And certification and packaging upgrades can cost between, just the top of my head, probably 5,000 kwacha to about 15,000 kwacha per product. And a solution would be to scale up subsidies and companies, either ZDA or CEEC. Then the other challenge is the fragmented implementation. So basically, here, what I'm trying to allude to is key institutions such as ZABS, ZDA, and ZAM sometimes tend to operate in isolation, and efforts of each institution isn't really appreciated fully. But in order to avoid this, ZABS and ZAM have signed an MOU, and just recently, at the just ended Invest in Zambia conference, which was hosted by ZDA, ZAM and ZDA also signed an MOU. So all this is just to strengthen each other's efforts. Okay, so the policies that, policy frameworks or campaigns that are in Zambia, the first one would be the National Quality Policy of 2021 to 2030. So it just sets a roadmap to build and strengthen Zambia's national quality infrastructure. Then the other one is the ZABS Act, which provides ZABS with the legal mandate to develop, publish, and enforce mandatory and voluntary standards. And it also empowers ZABS to conduct conformity assessments and issue certifications to support market access. The third one is the AFCFTA National Implementation Strategy of 2022 to 2027. This one prioritizes the reduction of non-tariff barriers through mutual recognition of standards. It also promotes investment in national testing laboratories and accreditation systems. We have another one, the Export Development Strategy of 2019 to 2024, which I hope is being reviewed. And this aims to diversify Zambia's export base by promoting value addition. Then we have the ZDA and EIF programs that provide technical assistance, business development services, and market readiness support. So this is just to build the gap on the capacity that is lacking. Then we have awareness campaigns such as the Proudly Zambian campaign, like I had mentioned. It promotes consumer trust in certified local products. We're just trying to build awareness for Zambians to consume more of the local products and services. So
Thank you very
for
much,
our recommendation,
Rose.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Rose, for enlightening us with those key protocols that are in place, and a very lovely case study of the Zambian case. So I just wanted to touch base with you with regards to what the current status is in terms of Zambia's participation in the intra-African trade and its future prospects under the AfCFTA in terms of trying to ensure that bottlenecks, including inability to use and adopt standards with regards to the Zambian context. Where are we on the Zambian case?
Okay, so for the Zambian case, future prospects under the AfCFTA is that Zambia was selected under the Guided Trade Initiative of 2023 and has started trading with selected African countries under the SEM in terms of creating opportunities for SME integration. And priority sectors under GIT include processed foods, agriculture, and light manufacturing. Then Zambia also launched its AfCFTA National Implementation Strategy 2022 to 2025, which gives priority to SME development and inclusion, harmonization of standards, upgrading industrial capacity and cross-border infrastructure. And the last one would be regional industrial value chains. So Zambia tries or aims to position its SMEs within the regional value chains in sectors such as agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, textiles and garments, as well as mineral beneficiation.
Thank you very much, Rose, for that insightful discussion. Obviously, taking into consideration the benefits and challenges that SMEs are facing in Zambia. So that was really insightful, Rose. We thank you very much for according us your time, and we will be looking forward to the time where you'll be able to answer questions that will be put forth by our participating audience. Thank you very much, Rose. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Rose from the Zambia Association of Manufacturers, who was enlightening us on improving the trade competitiveness of African SMEs. We would like to re-emphasize to our audience that this webinar is being recorded, and translation is also being offered from English to French and vice versa from French to English. So if you need that translation option, please feel free to access that on your device. Moving forward, we would like to welcome our third speaker, who is Mr. Abri Duplessis. So Mr. Abri Duplessis is a technical, is an associate at the Trade Law Center and on technical barriers to trade and sanitary and phytosanitary measures and intellectual property. So Mr. Duplessis obtained a BA in law and an LLB in degree at the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa in 1980 and 1982, respectively. We would like to state that he took early retirement in 2013 after serving and joined the Trade Law Center as an associate. And since then, in his TRALAC role, he has focused mostly on technical barriers to trade, sanitary and psychosanitary measures, and intellectual property. So he has served as a technical expert to the Technical Working Group on TBT and SPS during the negotiating phase of Annexes 6 and 7, the Agreement on the African Continental Free Trade, AfCFTA. While based in Europe, during an earlier part of his career, he spent considerable time on the EU regulation, on the registration, evaluation, and authorization of chemicals, and on the process of creating European standards published by the CEN. So, Mr. Duplessis, you are welcome. And Mr. Duplessis will be taking us on the theme, harnessing the AfCFTA opportunities for sustainable manufacturing, intra-African trade, and industrialization, the current status of intra-African trade opportunities and challenges in Africa. Mr. Duplessis, over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I just need to share my screen so that I can start. Just give me a second. I'm I'm having a slight problem here. Let me just do it again. Sorry, it's just going to take me a small moment.
Seem to be having some.
No, I'm going
the-
to settle it very quickly. Just give me a second. The
Okay.
screen sharing. Yeah.
So to those that have just joined us, we've had two sub-themes that have already been covered by two speakers, Mr. Dan Kitome from Kenya, as well as Mrs. Rose Chikotola from Zambia, who covered respective themes around empowering African businesses and improving the trade competitiveness of African SMEs and entrepreneurs. So I believe Mr. Duplessis has managed to beam his presentation. I'll hand it over to him. Thank you very much, Mr. Duplessis. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the introduction. The title that I'm doing today is to look at promoting the African sustainable manufacturing and trade through competitive made in Africa products and the role of standardization. But when you look at my topic, you will see that my first point that I have to touch on is the issue of trade within Africa and trade by Africa, and what are the challenges and the opportunities. And instead of going on and on about the statistics, I thought it might be a good idea to have a quick slide on what are people listing as challenges to trade within Africa growing in volumes, what are people listing as challenges to trade from Africa to other parts of the world, and then what are people seeing as the opportunities. So I'm going to go through this slide quickly. And the first on the challenge side, of course, is infrastructure deficiencies. Africa has many developing countries. There are infrastructure issues. There are long distances and so on and so on. Not that relevant for us for today. But the second one, of course, are non-tariff barriers. And I've listed it in blue because this is where standardization really plays a role in making sure that non-tariff measures do not become non-tariff barriers. And this is where we have the standard approach to standardization and harmonization on conformity assessment, not serving not being done in a way, or being done in a way that gets rid of non-tariff barriers. Access to finance, not that important for us today. Information gaps, not that important. Political instability and security concerns, always important, but not for us for today. And overall, the continent, I think, is doing quite well on this, except for a few exceptions. Currency fluctuations, not important for today. But the last three issues I have here, which is number one, existing trading patterns. Customs are hard to break. If people are used to trading in a certain manner, you need something extra to change the trading pattern. If a country is used, if traders in a country is used to importing a certain product from another faraway part of the world, they are not all by themselves going to decide to change the trading pattern. You also have existing consumer preferences. The trader will say, my consumers are used to products from a certain other part of the world, to products from another country in the world. What do you do to change existing consumer preferences? And then, yes, current levels of industrialization. As developing countries, African countries have to move towards industrialization, and industrialization means not only industrializing, but also upscaling and exporting within Africa and exporting to outside of Africa. So in a way, on the challenge side, the important bit for me is the industrialization part at the bottom, and then the non-tariff part at the top. The non-tariff barriers, they have been dealt with in terms of formal frameworks by the annexes to the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. They are being addressed by the annexes, they are being addressed by standardization organizations, by the economic communities. The question for me for today is, does standardization have a role beyond simply being an enabler? Can standardization move towards a promoter, towards a mechanism making use of opportunities? And this is why on the right-hand side of my slide, I have the opportunities. Yes, opportunity number one, Africa is starting at a very low level of intra-African trade volume and at quite a low level of outside of Africa trade volume in manufactured goods. There is scope for growth. Yes, industrialization and value addition, hugely important for us. It is Africa's turn as a continent now to participate in this. Enhance regional integration, very interesting one, because sometimes you hear that the regional economic communities are obstacles, sometimes you hear that they are building blocks, and sometimes you hear that eventually regional integration will take the day, so it is an opportunity. Greater global competitiveness, yes, you have to be more globally competitive. Exports have to be diversified. You have to attract foreign direct investment. You have to boost the agricultural sector. We have to promote sustainable development. And we have to increase trade between the regions. In Africa, if I look at my left slide about fixed patterns, we have to break the habit, so to speak. The question on the opportunity side of this slide is, where do we see standardization as being able to make a contribution to these opportunities? Because we have the traditional view, which would be on the left-hand side of the slide, where we would say, you know, standardization, you find them there under non-tariff barriers. They are a technical enabler, and that is what they do. They harmonize standards, they harmonize conformity assessments, they disseminate information to some extent, and that is their role. And on the right-hand side, there's a question that I am asking, can standardization do more? And obviously in the field of industrialization and value addition, obviously in the field of increased trade between regions, if we can take away the differences between the regions, but also on some of these other topics. So if I go to my next slide, we had a very good presentation from the presentation from ARSO. Basically, I decided to split the ARSO, what I heard, into three different aspects. The first one I would call the main role of standardization, also as explained by the presenter from ARSO, Mr. Kitome, basically to harmonize, develop African standards, to harmonize conformity assessment, to disseminate information, and in the process to get barriers to trade, non-tariff barriers to trade out of the way. ARSO has also done work on an ad hoc basis on trade facilitation. ARSO has done work on an ad hoc basis on dispute resolution, all in order to promote trade. But then I'm going to what I call next level, which is a little bit of saying, what is the greater role of standardization in promoting trade in and by Africa? Does it go further than enabler? Does it go further than highly technical? Does it go further than being confined to communication between technical experts on technical issues? What can standardization do? And my recommendation, and I am seeing it in action, is that ASO and also other standardizing bodies are clearly starting to think beyond the traditional roles that they have done in the past. Not that the traditional role of harmonizing conformity assessment and standards are not important. It is really important for us, specifically when we look at the regional economic communities. But I have to say that the framework is there to sort out the obstacles in that technical field. But I think that standardizers and standardizing bodies have to look at new areas and fields of activity to prepare for the promotion of trade, to look for promotional opportunities on trade, to look for awareness on promoting trade. And that is my third point. When I looked at my slides, when I looked at my second slide on opportunities, I think it is important for us to look at this slide, look at all these opportunities, not just the two green ones, and say, what can standardization do in these fields? And then that would be what I would call the next level role of standardization on promoting trade in Africa. And we have two examples today in our thinking, which I will do shortly. 2 points that I also want to make is that we have two key concepts which are now really important for us in Africa. It is the issue of sustainability and standards, industrialization, and sustainability. Sustainability from a commercial point of view, sustainability from an environmental point of view, sustainability from the human angle point of view, hugely important in terms of looking at promoting trade, which meets what the requirements are, and then also look at the issue of transition, energy transition, many other forms of industrial transition. What role can standards play? But my key observation here is that we have to look at identifying the contributing role that standards can play, standardization can play in a wide range of policies, programs, projects, and initiatives we have in Africa in promoting trade. So standardization is no longer a confined enabler with a very specific role in the trade picture. Standardization can do more. And standardization can do more by looking at each African initiative, each regional initiative, and each national initiative to promote international trade and intra-African trade. And we have to ask ourselves the question, what can standardization do? What is an appropriate contribution by standardization? And this is why we have the two examples today in the seminar. The one is the sustainable manufacturing issue, and the sustainable manufacturing for us in Africa and standardization. First issue that comes up is, yes, standardization and industrialization are clearly very connected. It is not for nothing that the historical industrial powerhouses of the world, Germany, Japan, the United States, it is not for nothing that they are also leaders on standardization. So standardization is part of industrialization, is part of development. And for us, in the African context, a specific challenge, which has been mentioned today, small and medium enterprises. How do we take industrialization, standardization to the door of small and medium and medium enterprises and make it an enabler for them? And then lastly, the Made in Africa, yes, it takes standardization from an enabler of trade to a promoter of trade and an activity which makes trade more competitive. And that is really important, because when we think about the term business, doing business is not only manufacturing the product. Doing business is competing with other competitors. Doing business is promoting your product. And standardization, if we look at the sustainable manufacturing issue and at the Made in Africa initiative, the whole idea is to enhance competitiveness, to enhance promotion, to give standardization its appropriate role. And then I leave you with my last question, of course, what is next? Do we have to do a next search of all the opportunities and identify the appropriate role for standardization and for an organization like ASO and for national standards organizations in these activities? And that is...
Thank you very much, Mr. Du Plessis, for that thought-provoking presentation, obviously to be summarized by how can standardization do more. So quickly, just under a minute, Mr. Du Plessis, just wanted to find out from you, in terms of the status of intra-African trade, what is the actual status, what is actually pertaining on the ground with regards to intra-African trade, as well as how is intra-African trade influencing the global competitiveness of doing business, as well as in the manufacturing of products from within industry. In under a minute, please.
Yes, in a very quick minute, whenever you look at the statistics, the picture you get is not good. You will always get the picture that only 17% roughly of African trade is intra-African trade. You will always get the picture of Africa is only participating in 2 or 3% of global trade. You can look at it in two ways. You can say, A, we are doomed, or you can say, B, there are lots and lots and lots of opportunity. And that is what my focus is today. Look at the scope for growth, look at the opportunity, and focus on the contribution that standardization can make. Standardization can give a small and medium enterprise the confidence to move from a province in a country to a country, to move from a country to the next country, to move from a region to the next region. So I think it's an important building block to always give it its rightful place. And a very important thing about standardization and about harmonization, it teaches traders and competitors about the greater world, the bigger world. And this is where we have to focus.
For that insightful presentation, as well as discussion on the importance of standardization, as well as what opportunities lie for African businesses in terms of manufacturing, as well as enhancing intra-African trade and industrialization in Africa. Much appreciated, Mr. Du Plessis. We look forward to a time when you'll be able to respond to questions that are coming in from our audience. Moving on, we would like to welcome our fourth speaker this afternoon, and this is Mr. Riunja Ali Kakunga, who is from PTB Consultants on the Made in Africa scheme. So Mr. Kakunga, who was the founding and the first chief executive officer of the Namibian Standards Institute, NSI, and also a consultant expert for the PTB Germany. He obtained a Master of Laws in International Economic Law from the University of Warwick in UK, where he first graduated with an LLB. And he is a legal expert with more than 20 years experience in the development and national quality policy and quality infrastructure in the Southern African Development Community, SADC, and other parts of the African continent. Mr. Kakunga was one of the independent PTB consultants who developed an implementation plan for the Made in Africa scheme based on the Africa Quality Policy in close collaboration with the PTB and the African Union Commission staff responsible for the coordination of the MIA initiative. Mr. Kakunga, thank you very much for according us your time and for giving us the opportunity to hear from you with regards to navigating the emerging trade, manufacturing, industrialization, and market integration nexus on the continent and the strategic role of Africa's regional value chains and made in Africa products in intra-African trade. The role and the need for harmonized regulatory framework like the Made in Africa qualification criteria. So I believe this will be an amplification to what Ms. Rose Chikotola from Zambia had presented to us earlier on. Mr. Kakunga, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Can you display the presentation? Yes. Let's go to the third slide. The presentation will have the following outline. It will first have an introduction, and then emerging trade, manufacturing, industrialization, and market integration. Next, strategic role of Africa's value chain and made in Africa products in intra-African trade. Potential of the Made in Africa scheme. The role and needs for harmonized regulatory framework like the MIA qualification criteria. And it will end with the necessary preconditions for MIA to succeed. Now, next, the presentation navigates the emerging trade, manufacturing, industrialization, and the market integration nexus in Africa. It discusses the strategic role of the continent's regional value chains and the Made in Africa trade. It examines the role and needs of harmonized regulatory framework like the Made in Africa criteria and outlines the potential of the MIA scheme. It discusses the possible preconditions for MIA to succeed and concludes that MIA mandates harmonization of standards through ASO and AFSEC. Yet, the success of the scheme shall vary depending on the products covered, the company using it, and the industries involved. Next, trade, manufacturing, and industrialization in Africa can be boosted by breaking away from the continent's inherited post-colonial and pre-independent structures that were designed to guarantee commodity extraction. It should be recognized that market integration in Africa is the basis for the continent's competitiveness in a global supply and value chains. Sustained long-term growth and accelerated economic transformation is best assured by economic cooperation. Africa's regional value chain play important role in the manufacturing and agro-industry for the stimulation of SMMEs and SMEs. Next. According to the African Export-Import Bank, the total value chain is often calculated as a sum of backward and forward integration. Forward integration is the amount of local inputs a country produces and employs in its production and export endeavors, while backward integration represents the percentage of foreign value added in a country's export trade. Next. The regional value chains are geographic specific variants of global value chains. Global value chains refer to a production sharing arrangement where production of a good is split into different tasks and phases performed in different countries. The global value chain represents a transformative shift from traditional paradigms, emphasizing segmented production processes that span multiple countries. Regional value chains cover a full array of activities of workers, firms, and countries within the same geographic region or continent, such as Africa, to move a product from the ideation, from an idea to final product and beyond. Regional value chains hold much promise for Africa's development, says the Afreximbank. The existence of 8 regional economic communities in Africa underscores the importance of market integration. The AFCFTA has a unique potential for industrialization on the African continent and to support the development of regional value chains in manufacturing and agro-industry, the stimulation of local entrepreneurship, and even providing support to MMSE and SMEs by targeting public policies that support the growth and transformation. AFCFTA is an important catalyst for market integration in Africa, designed to consolidate markets in Africa to attract foreign direct investment, especially in export-led manufacturing. The IMF agrees that AFCFTA is poised to play a transformative role in the development of RVCs across Africa, significantly enhancing African trade and economic integration. Regional value chains the potential of the MIA scheme to boost Africa's productive capacity and promotion of diversification is recognized by the African Union Commission. The potential of MIA, according to the AU's Director of Industry, Minerals, Entrepreneurship and Tourism, the MIA certification scheme was adopted by the AUC as part of the African Union Wider Agenda 2063. MIA is part of the efforts to create a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. The MIA criteria mandates harmonization of standards in Africa through ARSO for technical standards and AFSEC for electrotechnical standards. The ARSO
Hello, Mr. Kakunga. We don't seem to be receiving audio. Could be issues with connectivity. We still cannot get you, Mr. Kakunga. Could be having challenges there with issues around technology. So Mr. Kakunga has been giving us an overview of the role of Africa's value chain and their importance for Africa's development. We will try and reconnect with Mr. Kakunga, our IT team. Please try to get in touch with Mr. Kakunga so that we can accord him the opportunity to finish off his presentation. For our audience, we would like to encourage you, please, if you've got any questions, type them in the chat box, and we'll be able to attend to your questions when we get to the point of answering questions. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to type your questions, and we'll be able to respond to them. Mr. Kakunga, can you get me? Okay, we still seem not to be getting audio from your end. We will still come back to you and accord you the opportunity to finish off your presentation, as it has been very, very insightful. In the interim, thank you very much, but we will definitely try and get back to you once that technical glitch is sorted out. We quickly would like to move on now. We would like to welcome Mr. Komi Tsuo, who is Senior Advisor on Trade for UNDP, the Africa Bureau. So Mr. Komi Tsuo is the Senior Advisor for the UNDP Africa Bureau, leading and advising the UNDP portfolio on the African Continental Free Trade Area at both the continental and country levels. He advises public and private actors on trade and investments and leads development programs across Africa and beyond, focusing on issues ranging from trade, industrialization, and value chain development. Basically, what we have seen over the course of this webinar this afternoon. So before joining UNDP, Mr. Komi served in various positions at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in Geneva. Mr. Komi Tsuo, we would like to welcome you and thank you for according us your time to learn from you and to hear what you have for us with regards to leveraging the AFCFTA opportunities and the Made in Africa revolution for promoting manufacturing and intra-African trade, the current status of intra-African trade, and the UNDP initiatives with regards to spearheading these efforts. Mr. Komi, over to you.
Thanks very much, moderator. Just to check if you can hear me and you can see my screen. I've just shared my screen.
Yes, we would like to confirm that you are audible and we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Actually, I just want to share, to start my presentation by thanking again ARSO for organizing such an excellent engagement every month. Through UNDP with our country offices, this is something we follow as well. So a lot is being said, a lot has been said on intra-African market opportunities. And we know how important it is currently to trade more of what the continent produces. We have also seen a number of figures where usually it looks a bit gloomy that we are not trading a lot among ourselves. That's why I want to start with taking a specific example of dairy products in East African region. What we have put together with my team is really to look into what currently, if you look at the first graph on the left, is what currently over the past 4 or 5 years, the country, the East Africa region has been exporting in terms of dairy products to the world market in green. Within that global world market, there is a share that is traded within the continent, which is blue. And within what is traded within the continent, we have also the yellow that is telling us the yellow bar, what's actually trading within the region, East Africa region. What we are seeing clearly is that when it comes to dairy products, most of a huge portion of what is produced within the region, East Africa, is exported, traded within the region, which is a good example of where we want to see more of the regional value chain prosper on the continent. But on the other side, on the right diagram, if we look into what the continent imports in terms of dairy products and what are the main suppliers, and clearly this is something we know. When we look at the whole picture, most of our dairy products are coming outside the continent, despite the potential also of Eastern African region producing those products that can be shipped easily to West Africa, Southern Africa, and North Africa, and so on. So we hope, that's the hope also, that the AfCFTA, by lowering tariff and non-tariff barriers, will play a big role. And it's important, as we are working with so many business, especially MSMEs, how do we support? I think that's also the role of ARSO and other PACI institutions to also reduce the cost of standardization. And I think one of the key important factors will again be policy harmonization. To show quickly what we are importing as Africa in blue bar through products, sectors, and what is coming from inside the continent, which is the red bar, we can see almost all of our products, as we know, with a huge portion coming outside the continent. Despite the use, sometimes we are very surprised, as we all know, by the fact that, for example, we take a fishery sector, despite the huge potential, due to the lack of processing, we continue to import sardines and others, processed sardines and other tuna and others from the continent. But if you go to Comoros, Madagascar, and some other countries, you see the tons, quantity of tuna, for instance, fish that is not being processed. So that's why at UNDP, we have been investing a lot in supporting business, especially MSMEs, because of the percentage they constitute in terms of private sector in processing those goods. And I firmly believe that the Made in Africa initiative that is being driven by AUC, ARSO, and PACI institutions will be very helpful in getting there. But we all know, if we want to really promote the Made in Africa, what does it mean for us? Does it mean we only source raw materials from Africa? That's what this slide is saying. Does it mean we process significantly from Africa? That's probably the case. Does it mean we need investors to come from Africa? Does it mean we mix a kind of final product within the context of the continent? Under the context of the AfCFTA, I know it's not a time also to do a full explanation of the rules of origin of AfCFTA. It will be important that the raw materials are sourced, intermediate goods are sourced from the continent, or there is a significant processing of what's being processed on the continent to be looked into as Made in Africa products. That is also where the role of standards. We want to trade among ourselves, but we don't want to trade low quality product. So to keep that quality product high in terms of trading within ourselves, it's important to continue investing in a quality standard and so and so. And this is a lot of our country office are supporting through our UNDP country offices across Africa. Now, I'm concluding soon. I want to tell us, to remind us that when the market is open, such as the AfCFTA, compliance to trade rules and practice are essential. I think some of the previous panelists, discussants, and presenters spoke about compliance, the cost of compliance, and so and so. So we all know, for instance, when we come into the AfCFTA and Intra-African trade, one group of cost components will be documentary requirements and administrative procedures to comply to the measures. So all the measures, the trade measures, are not necessary trade barriers. Some businesses we have seen complaining about certification as barriers. Certification is not barrier. Certification is quite important. I think colleague from ARSO has said it all. Sometimes the cost, we all agree. You know, we were working with a business in Lesotho, and to certify her product, she has to go to South Africa and pay about 10,000 USD. It's quite high for MSMEs. But we do believe if we then promote, harmonize those standards through, for example, Made in Africa MIA program, that could significantly reduce. That's why I think a few months ago in Kenya, UNDP, we committed to support the Made in Africa initiative. The second areas of cost is that to make it Made in Africa, we need to source the product, the entrant, the raw materials, or the intermediate goods at some percentage of those goods from within the continental market. So to make sure that we are also creating those values. So there are a lot of level of compliance requirements, and but I think we need to work toward reducing those costs. Now, what UNDP is doing, so through our regional programs and our country offices, we are supporting first, providing that enabling environment and institutional strengthening, working with African Union institutions, the FCFTA Secretariat, the regional institutions such as ARSO and others. We also work specifically at the country level to support quality infrastructure system. In Togo, for instance, we have partnered with the National Standard Authority to provide certification to a number of small businesses. We are also working in Lesotho, and I think we have also had the opportunity to have the ARSO representation to start assessing, the capacity of the national certification body, so that we can design program later to support Lesotho certification body. We also work a lot in private sector development, MSMEs compliance. We have also been receiving requests for big companies to support the capacity of small businesses to comply with their requirement. A lot to look into the quality requirement for like supermarket who want to be supplied by small businesses. So we come in and support capacity building, compliance, working with national relevant authority, including national standard body. So these are some of the quick, I think, stories, opportunities I want to share. But just in concluding, I think we need to scale, accelerate our effort to support ARSO and other PACI institutions to really harmonize at least the standards at certain level, prioritizing some of the key value chain we are seeing emerging as winners in intra-African trade. I will stop there. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komituwo, for that very insightful presentation on the importance of Made in Africa and the potential impact that it has for the African continent. So quickly, just touching base in under a minute, given the current status of the intra-African trade, what are the main underlying factors that affect and influence the trade from what you have presented to us, considering the fact that most experts suggest that intra-African trade should be performing much more than it is today?
Yes.
What is your take on it?
Yeah, so look, one aspect we are not looking at is that most of the data we are seeing doesn't include informal cross-border trade as well. So first, I think we all agree that the level of intra-African trade is actually higher than what we are seeing officially in statistics. Second, what we have been seeing a lot, especially when it comes to MSMEs, is the costs of trading. To be honest, one MSME from Kenya, Ghana to Kenya lost a 100,000 deal just because it was just too expensive to ship the goods from Ghana to Kenya. So that's why it's important that we see how we integrate approach to support cost reduction. In terms of compliance, what about thinking of group certification for businesses that are in the same sector? This is something we can be thinking of. But for me, if we are able to reduce the trade cost, that will go a long way to really support our businesses trade with each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Comey, for that insightful discussion around leveraging the FCFT opportunities and the Made in Africa revolution for promoting manufacturing and intra-African trade. Thank you very much to all our speakers for those insightful presentations. We really appreciate, and they have really spoken to the theme of intra-African trade and the importance of the Made in Africa with regards to how to continue to promote trade and grow, push development in the African continent. So I want to move on now to our chat box. We came across some questions that our audience had put across, and we've got a question from Boutros Mawa, who says, "Good afternoon. I'm glad to participate in this meeting." Okay. And Mukta Dodo has got a question. How do you approach markets that do not accept self-declaration because there is a risk of green washing? Mr. Riunja, would you like to take that question? That is a question from Mukta Dodo. How do you approach markets that do not accept self-declaration because there is a risk of greenwashing? Okay, we seem to still not be having technical challenges with Mr. Riunja. I think we will just proceed and look at other questions. We've got a question from Beck Kansua. Most African countries are promoting trade but refusing to support standards bodies politically, financially, and morally. This action poses serious threats. In a situation like this, what advice can you offer? Any of our panelists take it up quickly? Most African countries are promoting trade but refusing to support standards bodies politically, financially, and morally. This action poses serious threats in a situation like this. What advice can you offer? Or maybe I could throw it to Mr. Dan Kitome, coming from a regulatory perspective.
We make sure that we meet with ministers of trade, that we can inform them the importance of implementing or adopting harmonized standards. And when they go to cabinet meetings, they will definitely inform presidents. We also make sure at the AUC level, we inform them of the processes and what the stages that we are at with regards to implementation of standards. It's a work in progress, I will say. Financially, I think most of the NSBs we have in Africa are government owned, and therefore the activities run by the NSBs are financial. What we will say is they do not provide enough finances to implement all the activities, but we hope that over time, government will be able to enhance their budgets. Being post-COVID time, we anticipate some budget cuts, but we hope that once the economies recover, they'll be able to reinstate the budgets to the initial level. The moral part is mostly from what we call the industry pushing regulatory bodies, the NSBs, to be able to provide the standards and promote trade from the NSB, from the SMEs level and the MSMEs level. Politically,
Thank
again,
you very
I will
much,
repeat.
Mr. Kitome. Thank you very much, Mr. Kitome. At least you
Moderator,
must touch 100% of it all.
Just an addition from ASO Central Secretariat. You realize that for a long time we did not have a quality policy. Right now we have African quality policy in place. Most of African countries don't have national quality policy that helps them to have to establish and support national quality framework or infrastructure. So this one is going to be a real game changer for Africa in terms of supporting the standardization bodies, the National Bureau of Standards, and other quality infrastructure. So this one is something which was brought on during the Abuja Treaty way back 1990, but it is when now in the year 2022, the African Union has adopted one African quality policy for which all African countries are now aligning their national quality policy and encouraging support from the government on this cause. Thank you. I wanted to add that.
Thank you, Mr. Philip, for that addition. I'm sure it suffices to the question that we had around standards bodies not getting the much needed support. So, in the interest of time, we will be able to attend to your questions. We've taken note of all questions that have been sent through, and I think through ASO Secretariat, we should be able to get back to you with your desired responses. In closing off, I would like to get closing remarks from our speakers. So I would start with Mrs. Rose. What have been your key takeaways and recommendations based on the discussions that we've had today in under a minute? Rose, are you with us?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can get you. Please proceed.
Okay, so I think the key takeaway from my end would be the strategic role that SMEs play in all this. And each presenter has mentioned that SMEs form the backbone of the economy. Particularly for Zambia, they contribute over 70% of to employment and approximately 20% of the GDP. So they are central in boosting local manufacturing capacity, imports substitution of value addition, driving industrialization goals, as well as creating inclusive economic growth, especially in the rural and peri-urban areas. So it would be important to ensure that we have capacity building programs and also just to raise awareness on the benefits of intra-Africa trade. I think that's my takeaway from all this.
Thank you very much, Rose Chikotola. We look forward to engaging with you in future discussions around intra-African trade. Thank you. Mr. Duplessis, your key takeaways with regards to today's discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My key takeaway is that standards and conformity assessment should not be something that you become aware of once you've become successful and all of a sudden you run into them at the border post. You really have to know about them, plan for them as your small and medium enterprise is growing. Just the same way as WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, would say to every small entrepreneur in the world, have you thought about your trademark? Have you thought about your intellectual property? The same way governments, national governments should get to MSMEs as soon as possible to make them aware, to get them to put standards into their planning, whether they need it someday or not, but to understand that it is a confidence building, supporting, promoting mechanism beyond being simply an enabler or even worse, an obstacle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duplessis, for your insightful presentations, and we look forward to engaging with you in discussions that try to promote trade as well as growth of industry in Africa. Thank you very much. Mr. Komi Tsuo, your closing remarks with regards to today's discussions on this all-important webinar.
So thank you. Two quick ones from my end. First, we are testing this concept of group shipping to reduce cost. Will it be possible also to scale group certification? I know it's not easy because of the production process, but can we start reflecting on that? Maybe under also the framework of the MIA. Second, I know by working with many national authorities, it is true that when we receive, for instance, program from governments on trade, standard issues are not prioritized. That's why I think it's also important, again, that the National Standard Authority engage, usually the Ministry of Trade and Industry or MSMEs Development, which are anchor contact, to start prioritizing those as part of the support package, because I think increasingly partners are prioritizing what government are giving them. So these are the two key recommendations I just also want to work. But at the country level, please do also reach out to UNDP country offices to understand what kind of program they offer on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komi, and we look forward to more partnerships and stakeholder engagements with the UNDP across the African continent. And finally, closing it off, we go to Mr. Dan Kitome, your key takeaways and closing remarks with regards to our discussion today.
Thank you very much, moderator. On my closing remarks, I would just like to give I urge us, all of us, to remember the power to transform our continent lies within us. And I would just like to give the commitment that ARSO will continue harmonizing standards and promoting quality infrastructure to facilitate trade and ensure that the made in African products are competitive globally. I would like to urge us, all of us, to embrace youth and SMEs' understanding of the quality infrastructure through standards education, the essay competition, embracing and enlarging regional value chains, supporting local industries in our businesses at the NSB level. You buy from the local, and demand high quality African products through the standards harmonized. We contribute directly to the economy, noting that, and we need to ensure our self-reliance with goods produced within our continent. The journey to fully integrate and industrialize Africa is based on us, and we need to have closer collaboration to ensure that the FCFTA is fully implemented. On my last point, I would just like to make you a champion of Made in Africa in all aspects of our lives, noting that we need to have this spirit of collaboration, innovation, and Pan-Africanism. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kitome. Definitely the power to transform our continent lies in us. My name has been Lupia Mazunda and have been your moderator for this all-important webinar, which focused on the theme, Intra-African Trade and Made in Africa. Please do look out for more webinars of this nature that are hosted every month by the ASO Secretariat, and we will definitely continue to engage with you, our stakeholders, with regards to how we can go on enhancing trade and standardization in our country. So I would like to take it back now to our host, Mr. Ruben Giso, to give us his closing remarks with regards to this webinar that we've had today. Thank you very much, Mr. Giso. Over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator, for the very good moderation that you've done. Maybe perhaps before we go completely, Kakunga, I don't know whether you are able to talk, because we are not getting your audio, but if you are able, you are not. It's okay. I think that's a technical hitch we've had. I thank you, moderator, and at this point in time, I would like to appreciate all the panelists. You have given us very insightful presentations and some challenges as well. So we look forward to changing the attitude. And as Du Plessis was saying, the issue of doing the traditional work of harmonizing the standards and going back and expecting that they will be used, we are not doing that anymore. And that's why you can see that we have increased the creation of awareness. We have increased the engagement with the SMEs, and in coordination with quite a lot of supporters or partners, we have tried the aspect of even supporting some of the certification for SMEs. And that's why you will find that in our communication with member states, we always encourage them to get a list of those SMEs which are ready for certification, or which express interest for certification. And in that, we are making some headway. We are certifying some, and we continue doing that. The issue is people need to be shown the benefits, and from which they need to start now looking out for the tools. So yes, as Duplessis was challenging is, what are we doing as ARSO? What are we doing as the quality infrastructure bodies? We are no longer doing the traditional work. We are doing the promotion. We are showing the benefits. We are supporting. And that's where the quality infrastructure aspect is being promoted, is being heard. And we believe that our countries will recognize that their plans for development, their plans for industrialization will not materialize if they cannot fund the quality infrastructure. Industrialization requires standards. If you don't get the standards, you can't industrialize. I'm happy that sometimes when people say it's German quality, Japanese quality, USA, whatever, that quality, they should understand, is underpinned by investments in the quality infrastructure, in the laboratories, in the standards, in certification, in research and development. If not, we shall be desiring to industrialize and we cannot industrialize. We shall be desiring to trade and we cannot trade. We shall be desiring to do this value addition, but we can't do it the right way. And therefore, we need to ensure that there are investments in that sector, in the sector that drives the industrialization. We had a delegation from Zimbabwe recently, and clearly we told them standards don't shout. But without standards, so many things can go wrong. And sometimes we can even lose lives. So if people can understand that, then it is not possible for them to invest in the standard processes. So as we close, we also remind you that this is a monthly activity. We made it over a long time now, from 2020. And we believe that it should continue in partnership with member states. The next one we shall be looking is the regulatory environment for electricity markets in Africa. We do have an issue with electricity, but we are increasingly seeing that countries like Ethiopia, countries like Tanzania, countries like DRC are looking at increasing the generation capacity. Sometimes they increase the generation capacity, but the countries do not have the industrial base to consume all the electricity, while their neighbors probably do not have that increase in generation of that surplus generation of electricity. And therefore, there is need for us to have interconnections across the countries so that it can increase the possibilities of running industries using reliable electricity generation. It doesn't have to be generated in one country. It can be generated in Ethiopia and sold to Tanzania, for example, through Kenyan network. And that is already something that is happening. For a long time, we used to have this generation in DRC being transported all the way to South Africa. It can be done. And so many countries, that's what they're doing. So we shall be looking at that in the next webinar. And I hope that we will be having panelists and participants who are interested in doing this. At the same time, that's a sector that we are already doing joint work between ALSO and AFSEC, and we shall be starting to do the harmonization of these standards for electricity, particularly for the pools, electricity pools across the continent, so that we can have them interconnected. So we look forward to inviting you for that. But before we end, I think if Nathan is present, he can have the final remarks, and then we can close. If he's present.
Thank you very much, Ruben. And we appreciate the whole program, and I think it was quite insightful. laying a lot of issues that we need to look at, challenges that we are facing in Africa, and also the opportunities that we have, and also the drive from the bodies, ASO, UNEP, and others, to support trade in Africa. That is much much appreciated. Of course, what is more pronounced is trading between countries, and what can help us is to ensure that we come up with harmonized standards, and we don't end up only at harmonizing standards, but these standards must be adopted and applied in respective countries, so that we can go on and implement the motto of one standard, one test, and one certificate accepted everywhere. So as Africa, if we have silos in terms of standards, we have separate standards, we find it difficult to trade. But if standards are harmonized, it will be easier for us to trade. My products from Zambia, if they are certified, tested, they should not find it difficult to penetrate in other countries in Africa. Same applies whether from West Africa, from North Africa, from East Africa, we should trade. So having such webinars opens our mind, and also we change the focus on what is it that we need to do as the NSBs and other organizations that support trade in Africa. I think this initiative by ASO is quite appreciated. We also appreciate the panelists. I listened to all the presentation, and I can see that they took time to research, to go deeply. It was not just a presentation as usual, bring out issues. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities that we have that will help us, to continue trading in Africa? So thank you very much. And also, there's a very good number of participants. I was checking almost at least 180, 70, 80 participants all over Africa joining on this webinar this afternoon. This is quite encouraging. Also, as Zambia Bureau of Standards, it's an opportunity, even ourselves, even next time to do this. Also, we are creating awareness of what we do as ZABs, and also what is happening in Zambia. A very good presentation from Rose and from Zambia Association of Manufacturers there, and also giving independent view from the NSB, bring out issues that the NSBs have, the weaknesses, the challenges that we are facing, where we are not doing good. So sometimes it's very good to have people to do presentation outside the NSBs, because they independently bring out the issues that can be able to help us. Otherwise, we thank you so much, and pass our regards to the Secretary General and also those who are connected, the NSB CEOs. Thank you so much for joining. Those who are representing NSBs, we appreciate that you joined the webinar this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very good summary. I like the presentations from the private sector sometimes, so that we can really get to know what the challenges are that they're facing, and the initiatives they're also taking to partner with the standards bodies and other regulators to ensure that our people trade. We would like to take a photo. If those who are participating can put their cameras on, we take a group photo. Dan, you can take and tell us when you have finished. You tell us when you are done, when you have finished. Are you finished?
Thank you, TD. We have taken. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Until 27th of September, when we have the next webinar. We appreciate your participation. Thank you a lot.